Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Reed
What's up?
and Michael Hall.
What up?
Hey, it's good to be back, everybody, and some new developing news has come about with around the Redskins. A bunch of Redskins talked to the media. I'm not sure if you guys were able to pick up on this, but Ron Rivera in particular, I wanted to go to Mike Hall first with this. Did you hear that Ron Rivera said that he believes if Chase Young stays healthy, he could be in the same level as Darrell Green to Redskins fans?
Yeah, I completely agree. Just going back to our early podcast where we talked about, they seem to be bringing in a lot of the DMV area, a lot of homebred and homegrown players back to the area, which obviously, more than likely, they're probably fans of the team growing up. I don't know, maybe not like the younger generation because they've been so bad lately. But
Hey, we're fans.
no, but I'm talking about like the younger,
Yeah, I know, I know.
like just. But
We're 30, Kyle.
yeah, and we're still like a last of a dying breed, honestly.
Really?
I know.
But now, yeah, I definitely do think he
I
can
am
be,
old, you're
especially yeah. I'm the oldest one here. So
Thanks for putting that in there, Reed. Just turned. Thanks, dude.
Now, yeah, I definitely think that he can definitely be in that high regard as Darrell Green. From all accounts, he's a high character guy. Like I just said, he's a hometown guy from Upper Marlboro. From all accounts, he was a fan of the team growing up, and I just think that he has that Hall of Fame trajectory, and obviously Darrell Green's a Hall of Famer, so just to be anywhere sniffing that kind of air, I mean, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that, Ron Rivera generally does not throw praise around like this, especially because he has to put his name next to it. If Chase Young doesn't turn out to be that good, then, Ron Rivera kind of stuck his neck out for him, but it shows how much confidence he has in Chase Young and who Chase Young can be. Reed, what was your interpretation of Rivera's comments about Chase Young?
Well, I think both of you guys just made excellent points. You got that completely right. That just speaks volumes to how Ron Rivera feels about him, and just how good and how naturally talented of a player he is. Now, will he end up being a Darrell Green type? I don't know. I highly doubt he's going to play anywhere close to 20 seasons. Today's NFL is a little bit different, especially when you're playing in the trenches as a defensive lineman. You're going to get nicked up. Will he probably miss some games at some point in his career? Yeah, did Darrell Green? Not many. I don't know if he'll be it in that sense, but in the sense of like this is like a franchise style player that your entire city loves. This is your franchise guy. He definitely has the ability. I could 100% see that, and honestly, that's the hope when you take a guy with that much ability at number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And another person that had that talked to the Redskins media was Adrian Peterson, and he had some interesting comments that I want to talk about. One in particular here, if I could find it. He says, out of the 3 seasons that he's been with the Redskins, this upcoming pool of players has the most talent he has seen. He truly believes they have the chance to run the table, and this is based on his interview with Zach Selby from the Redskins media team. So, Reed, what is your first interpretation of that? Because I know a lot of people say that, but coming from AP, I think that says a lot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. He's a veteran in this league. He's a surefire Hall of Famer, and he is somebody who has been around some very good teams. He likes the talent. He likes what the coaching staff so far is bringing to the table. He likes how he was talking about how they're going to be using multiple running backs on the field at the same time. And I think AP, of course, everybody's going to say that. Everybody going into the season thinks that this is their year. But Adrian Peterson, I mean, he's usually not somebody who says something like that.
Yeah.
And to hear it from him, a leader in the locker room, I think it can really light a fire under some of these guys' asses and hopefully get it going. I like where he's going with this, unless, of course, we finish 1-15, at which point, God damn it, Adrian Peterson.
You're absolutely right about that. But Hall, before I go to your comments on AP's what he had to say about the Redskins, I wanted to say to you guys before we get ahead of ourselves, we're talking about the general updated news of the Redskins, and then we have our top 5 Redskins of all time that we are going to discuss on here. And then in the back end of the podcast, we're going to talk about some dark horses that could be the NFL MVP in the upcoming season. So Hall, let's go back to you. Let's reverse a little bit. What is your reaction to AP's comments saying that the Redskins have the talent available to run the table?
Yeah, I take it as more of like a coaching staff and a culture change more than a player change because It's the same players from last year, minus the new draft picks and a couple of free agents, and we've lost some players that were pretty talented, aka Trent Williams.
Yeah.
But I definitely think he's also thinking back to that 2018 season where it was a lot of mediocre to below average offense play, passing wise, but the run game was strong and the defense was holding up pretty strong until obviously the catastrophe in week 11. But I think he's just like pretty much like I said, the culture change, the coaching change, and he's just reminiscing off of the 18 season where you fast forward to 2020, the defense seems to be upgraded more in most positions, and the offense, I would honestly say, has more weapons because Terry McLaurin is better than any receiver we had in 2018. The tight end position, I know Jordan Reed was off and on that year, but if we get a consistent all 16 players at tight end, I can just say they're an upgrade from Jordan Reed. And I just think, like I said, the all around culture. And so I don't think he's going to run the table. That's a lot of like off season talk.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see them having a positive outlook and definitely like a winning record.
Yeah, and I think it's like you said. I don't think it's more about the talent that has been acquired here because it is a lot of the same, but it is the mindset brought with Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio being the defensive coordinator, being able to get these guys ready. Because to give some context, a couple years ago, the Redskins were not far off from being a playoff team until Alex Smith went down with an injury. So if you think that they could have the defense playing at that kind of level, maybe even better without having the same, I don't even care if it's the same offensive output. It doesn't even have to be that much. The Redskins defense is going to be very good, and you're right, Hall. I think Adrian Peterson is onto something there, and it's not something that has been foreign to any of us. We've been saying we think the Redskins will go above 500. But speaking of Trent Williams, you brought it up, Hall. AP had an interesting comment, and he said he wished that he thought it was going to end better with Trent Williams. Hall, what's your initial reaction to that?
I mean, that's Trent's like that's his boy. They're
Yeah,
like pretty
that's
good. They're
so
like best
weird.
friends. Uh, Maybe I'm taking from that I guess Adrian was probably thinking that hey, we got rid of Bruce Allen, we got a new coach in here. Ron Rivera was saying from the get go, we want Trent to be a part of our team, part of our culture. That's our guy. Blah blah blah. So maybe he was just thinking that once they get together in the same room, they'll be able to hash it out and we can move forward. But obviously, Trent wanted no parts of being around anywhere in Washington's park. So
Yeah, his actual quote, I think he said it was a happy ending. He thought it could have had a happy ending to it.
yeah, it definitely could because from every Redskins fan, even though they were mad at Trent, they knew that it was pretty much Bruce in the front office
Yeah.
and team doctors, and they would have welcomed him back with open arms, like without a doubt. I 100% agree with that,
Yeah.
or I 100% believe that. But like I said, it's just you could just tell Trent at the end of the day, he said it was about this, that, and the third, but it was all about money. He wanted more money. He wanted another contract. Ron Rivera and Kyle Smith said, "Let's fill you out. Let's get to know you a little bit, and we'll go from there." And he was just like, "Nope, I don't want to be here." So I guess good riddance.
Yeah, and look, Ron Rivera, that was one of the first things he said when he came in here. It was before they do any extension with any players, they want to be able to meet with them first. And based off that interview, Trent felt disrespected, and that's where things kind of spiraled out of control. Reed, what is your initial reaction? Do you agree with Hall?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Hall. I mean, of course, Adrian Peterson and Trent Williams, like you said, they're the best of friends. AP's always going to have his back, and I do think that just judging off of what past teams have gotten for left tackles, I mean, you look back at the Dolphins and Texans trade for Laramie Tunsil, Adrian Peterson, who knows Trent, knows what he's capable of. He knows that Trent's a more talented offensive tackle. Yes, he's a little bit older, and yes, he's missed some time with injuries, but he's a better offensive tackle. So I think in his head, he was thinking maybe either Trent would stay or they would be able to get something higher. But with the way that it all unfolded, unfortunately, we weren't in a position to get any high draft picks. I mean, we're lucky that we ended up getting a third in this coming 2021 draft.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody wishes that it would have ended better. Possibly, we all hoped for the best. JP Finley was tweeting out there that he was sure we would get at least a second round pick, possibly a first, and it didn't happen like that. And I think a lot of Redskins fans, or a good amount of them, were pretty disappointed when they saw the compensation. But it is what it is, and it made sense, and it had to be done. But I completely understand AP's comments.
Yeah, and AP's comments more lean towards in defense of the Redskins. You know, that's just that's
Right.
what I took away from it. It wasn't that the Redskins screwed this up. It was that Trent just straight up did not want to do this. And that's why he's disappointed, because if he would have at least tried, he could be on this team right now. That being said, let's bring some negativity here. But did you guys hear Antonio Gandy Golden, unfortunate enough, had been diagnosed with COVID-19, and he got healed and cured by the 7th of April. They just came out recently. Reed, did you hear this?
Yeah, I did. I was very surprised because that was completely kept under wraps. I mean, nobody knew about it. You would think that a player heading into the draft, especially who was looked at as a second to mid rounder, I mean, not second, you know what I mean, third to fourth round pick, had it. Then I would have thought that would have been pretty big news, but I guess they didn't want it getting out. And like he said, this is well before the draft. It's interesting. I guess he's lucky that he didn't really have a pro day. What would have happened, back then if his pro day, I don't know when it was scheduled for, but that would have been interesting to see him working out with COVID. It's crazy, but hey, he's got the antibodies. Now all I want from Antonio Goldie is A, him to produce, and B, his blood.
That's hilarious. And speaking of COVID, I was really distraught today because I was driving into work at 6 in the morning. I'm there at 6:30, and I pull onto this one street, and I see these women, hookers, unfortunate enough, but they were out there, like arguing in the middle of the street. And the one thing that pops into my head is, why aren't they wearing masks? Like, what is going on right now?
Kyle, I'd hate to break it to you, but 9 times out of 10, these women don't even wear condoms. Yeah. So do you think that they're scared of a little COVID?
That was what I was gonna say. I was like, they're not even wearing masks. You think they're using condoms? No.
I mean, they're just walking the streets early morning in DC. So I mean, that's
right. They don't care.
Right in there, they just
COVID is the least of the diseases that they're worried about catching.
I felt so bad. It's like, dude, come on, go inside. But Hall, I'm sorry to bring this back. Hall, what is your immediate reaction from that? Because I was blown away a little bit with Antonio Gandy Golden. I thought that somehow through the grapevine we probably would have heard about this sooner. But I think out of respect for Antonio, everyone kept it quiet. And I'm glad that he came back from this, because watch him come back from Corona and just ball out next season. So, Hall, what's your reaction?
Yeah, like you just said, especially in this day and age, 2020, where everything is all social media based and driven, you would think that somehow, some way, someone close to him or someone around or that even knew that he had it would have leaked it out to some type of source and it would have got out. But yeah, credit to him and the people around him, the people that he keeps close. Obviously, it seems like he has a pretty close-knit circle that likes to keep their mouth shut and let him do his thing. So obviously, like you said, I hope that he comes back better. And he's fully healthy now, so obviously he's better.
I hope that he didn't share a Rubik's Cube with anybody.
Yeah, you're not kidding about that, Reed. You're not kidding about that at all.
I never joke.
So let's move on to the next topic I wanted to discuss. Did you guys see that Dwayne Haskins has actually been working out with Darius Geis, with Kelvin Harmon, Terry McLaurin, and Steven Sims? They've all made plans to meet up with each other and work out. And the one thing in particular I saw was that Dwayne and Darius were hanging out, hugging each other. So it looks like everything is actually squashed now. That was just nothing. That was just maybe a blip on the radar.
Right. Yeah.
No, they're pulling a Earl Thomas and his brother.
Right. They're brothers.
Hey, there you go, Hall. There's the thinking.
It is good. Like, we've known that Dwayne Haskins and Kelvin Harmon have worked out together for a while, for a pretty long time. They have a pretty good repertoire. They have good chemistry. But did you see the picture of Darius Geis? I hate to always bring it back to this, but Darius Geis was standing with this one leg back, one leg cocked forward, and then he had the little thing going on, kind of one of these. And it was like, Darius, you're not helping your calls right now, man. I love you, but I'm still on to you.
Reed, at this point, he's doing it just to troll you.
Yeah,
he must be.
He probably listens to this podcast. And he's like, I'm just going to troll this guy.
Yeah, he's like, this guy needs to stop saying I'm gay.
He just starts stalking your Instagram and trolling you now.
You're about to have his goons up in your DM. Like, stop talking about
That's
my boy.
it's better than having Darius up in my DMs.
That's true.
I'm just kidding.
That went over my head. I just got that.
But in all honesty, it's good to see that they're out there working out together. Because
Right.
you know, with this abbreviated off season, and especially because one thing I wanted to talk about, because I saw Parker Hamlet, the guest that we had on last week, he actually made a good point. He talked about Josh Rosen and how people like me had wanted the Redskins to trade for Josh
remember
Rosen
that.
last
Yep.
season before the draft. Now, I will say right now, Josh Rosen has been in a different offense every year he's been in the league, and there's another quarterback by the name of Jason Campbell who had that same thing happen to him. When that happens, a quarterback is always withheld from their ability from being able to progress. That being said, I think with that, because Dwayne Haskins coming into his now second offense learning, I think that him getting this repertoire with his wide receivers is only going to help him get ready for training camp leading up. What about you, Reed?
Yeah, I completely agree. The Josh Rosen thing to me, it's so crazy to think because Kyle, we talked about it so much before the draft, before the 2019 draft, about how let's just get rid of his second round pick, get Josh Rosen, and we'll be okay. And that you're right, you just can't do that with quarterbacks. You can't have them be in so many different offenses. It just completely ruins them. And think about this. There's a real chance that Josh Rosen will be the third string quarterback in Miami right now. Because if you look at it, they're not going to start Tua immediately. So Tua will be the second string, probably behind Fitzpatrick to begin the year. Rosen's going to be a third round or the third string if he even makes the team. That's crazy to me how far he's already fallen. But I love Haskins. I think that Haskins really has kind of, from at least all accounts so far, he's kind of beginning to grasp this offense, show leadership, get his receivers out, his running backs out to work out with him. He's taking it seriously by losing weight. And I really think that Dwayne Haskins can come out and surprise some people this year.
Yeah, and especially the fact that he is working out with other guys right now, getting used to them, I know there is no defense out there right now. We get it. But the fact is
chemistry,
that's all it's about, is just being able to build relationships and friendships. And as long as everyone is having a great time, there's no negative about it.
And yeah, real quick point. That's the one thing that we had all been saying after the season is that we need Dwayne to kind of show initiative, get the guys out there, work out with them in the off season. And he's doing that. That's really all you can ask for. And until we see us play in the field, I think he's doing everything right, except for wearing oversized T-shirts that look like they're from the Walmart bin when he works out. That concerns me a little bit.
No, that being said, I wanted to say, like, I didn't have a problem with Dwayne's weight or anything before, because as a quarterback,
neither did I.
Yeah, as a quarterback, you would rather your quarterback be big. You guys remember Jared Lorenzen, the quarterback from the Giants,
hefty lefty,
right?
Yeah.
Just a
R.I.P.
huge dude. If you're big enough, guys can't bring you down. I mean, look at Big Ben. Big Ben came into who I compared Dwayne Haskins to when he came out.
You did. To your
When
credit.
he was skinny when he came in, and then got big because he was hard to bring down. And he knew the more he weighed, it was harder to bring down. And that's why I didn't have a problem with Dwayne. And so losing that weight, I don't think is going to limit him in any capacity. But I'm just saying I didn't have a problem with it.
Right. And it really showed on the field, him being able to escape the pocket at times and break tackles. He was tough to bring down. So it's going to be interesting what his game looks like this year. Losing, 11 pounds? He's down to 7% body fat or something. Good for him.
Yeah.
And I saw him rocking that Wizards customized jersey that he was wearing.
Yeah, that was nice.
Which is all that we've been asking for from the Redskins players, just to embrace the city, love the city, and I really appreciate that he's being able to do that. Now let's move on to the meat of this podcast episode, baby. Let's go on to our top 5 Redskins of all time. So I'll go to Hall first with your number 5. Let me hear it.
My number 5 is Mr. Dougie Williams, the first African-American quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, Redskins legend, Hall of Famer, but the organization still just doing his thing. And like I said, he's not my number 5. Not too much else to put into it.
That's a good one of always, because Doug Williams, it means a lot to this Redskins organization still to this day. Coveted by fans, being able, because he was a dark horse coming from Tampa, where everyone thought he was dead and gone. Joe Gibbs gave him a chance, and he really made the most of it. And look, Doug Williams is a great guy. No one's going to say that. I love his press conferences. I think we all do. The sound bites we get from it are hilarious. A great Redskin, and he means a lot to this organization. Reed, what's yours? Number 5.
Real quick, I do just want to elaborate on the Doug Williams thing. It's so cool that not only did he win a Super Bowl here and he got a chance, but now he's still with the organization. He's still trying to be a leader to these young players. You got to love that about him. He was close to making my list, but for me, number 5, this could surprise some people. Some people may think that he'd be a little bit higher, but I'm going to go with Riggo, old John Riggins. And I'm going to tell you why. John Riggins had the greatest play in Redskins history with that run against the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. He was fantastic. And he was just such a throwback player, drinking beers, being just a big, powerful running back and being on some very good Washington Redskins teams. And you love Riggo. I think everybody that's associated with the Washington Redskins loves John Riggins. And a quick tidbit, I actually ran John Riggins' microphone at a Damascus High School football team awards show a few years back.
Nice.
And you want to know who his agent, I don't know if he's his agent, but he's somebody who helps him with the presses, is the joke guy from Borat, the guy where Borat's like, that suit is black, not that dude was sitting across from him.
Yeah.
That's the guy who he rolls with, who helps handle a lot of his press events.
No way.
Yeah, that was funny as hell to meet him.
Oh, that's such a good one. That is a good one. But look, I'm sorry, Riggins, you didn't make my list, dude. Because I felt like this is a list that's for people that are born and bred to be Redskins, and I think this guy number 5 fits the bill for me. And I'm going with Russ Grimm. He was a part of the 3 Super Bowl wins for the Redskins, the only 3 Super Bowl wins for the Redskins, and he was the face of the Hogs and the heydays of the Redskins. So I felt like Russ Grimm deserved a spot on my list here because he just means a lot to the organization. He's one of the best of all time, in my opinion. Now, Hall, let's go to you. What's your number 4?
Well, you just said my number 4. It was Russ Grimm. Like you said, face of the Hogs, won 3 Super Bowls with the Skins. Legendary skin, always going to be considered one of the best of all time and one of the greatest Redskins of all time. And how can you argue with a good old Grimm?
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for him to come back and coach the offensive line here. Still hoping that happens, but I know that was he in Arizona, and then where did he move after that?
He was in Arizona a little while ago. I don't remember where he went after that. I almost want to say the Steelers, but I'm not 100% sure. But I do know he was in Arizona. He was running to be a head coach, and he went somewhere.
I think you're absolutely right about that. I think that is actually because it was bittersweet for me.
Yeah,
when I heard that name.
I remember Gavin bringing it up like recently too. So I think
okay. Well, the good move.
He's done wonders with that offensive line. Look at how good that offensive line's been.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, he's great, and I hope he comes back to DC one day in some capacity. It means a lot to his organization, Hall. You're absolutely right. So, Hall, let's go to your number 4.
You mean Reed?
Reed, sorry, did I say Hall again?
So number 4, I'm going to go with somebody who unfortunately did not get to suit up too much because of some tragic events. But this is everybody from our generation's favorite player of all time. And just when he was on the field, just the way that he changed the game was incredible. Sean Taylor, I'm going to go with old ST. He was such a joy to watch. It was such a pleasure just knowing that he was back there. You always felt safe and content knowing that we had Sean Taylor back there as a safety net. The hits that he laid, I still watch his highlight compilations, and you're just like in awe. Like the things that he would do was just so incredible. Not only was he a heavy hitter, but he was such a big athletic freak and such a good ball hawk. Remember him intercepting Brett Favre to set the interceptions record for Brett Favre? He had, I think, 2 or 3 that game, and it put him over the top, and Brett Favre became the all-time leader in interceptions. It was just that last season that got cut short because of his death. He was on a fantastic run and deserved all Pro Bowl considerations for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, man, on Twitter, I've got these like anonymous accounts like going after me every time I talk about Sean Taylor. And it's just like, good Lord, like going the dude said today that Sean Taylor was a punk. And I was just like, oh my God, like calm down, man.
Does this person want to get trolled?
I was like, dude,
send me their info.
No, I was just like, dude, calm down. Like, it's okay. And then I talked about Chief Z, and then he talked about how Chief Z like was an addict and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, dude, or like an alcoholic or something.
No.
It's like
Most
dude.
Native Americans are. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. It's
Dude,
not a
Reed.
stereotype.
Dude, Reed
If it's
presses
always
buttons.
true.
He does not care at all.
I
But
know.
no,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get a reaction
right now. But it was but you're absolutely right, Reed. You're 100%
about
right.
the
And it's
Native
just,
Americans. I know.
no, not that. Not that. But because I lost track, let's move on to my number 4. And I think this guy deserves a lot more credit and gets forgotten about around Redskins fans. That's Chris Samuels. All those Pro Bowls that he had. One of the best left tackle to ever play here for the Washington Redskins. I think Chris Samuels deserves a spot on this list at number 4.
I agree with you. Just his longevity and what he did, man. He was fantastic. But I don't think he was the best Redskins left tackle of all time.
You think Trent's better?
I do. I'm the biggest Trent guy. I know it ended sour, but just Trent was amazing when he played. But Chris Samuels he didn't leave a bitter taste in our mouth, and he was fantastic.
But also, there's a big caveat there. That is, there a very good argument to be made, and that's Chris Samuels was always healthy.
Exactly. I'm just going from a pure talent standpoint.
Okay. All right. I'm just talking about like over the Redskins' career. Yes,
I would agree with you. I would rate his Redskins career better than Trent's.
Okay. So I'm guessing, Hall, judging based on your reaction to me saying Chris Samuels at 4, that was your number 3 spot.
Yeah, that was my number 3 because I thought that was gonna be like a little like dark horse that no one was thinking about. God damn you! But like great minds think alike, obviously.
Yeah.
But you just what he meant to the Redskins, like you said, people forget about him. Like just because Trent's been here, like obviously, well, almost half the years he was here. But it's just like people kind of forget that before Trent was another great, solid,
consistent,
always top 2 or top 3 in the league, left tackle, and Chris Samuels that anchored that running game with Steven Davis, all those guys, Liddell Betts, and all those guys back.
Clinton
Portis, exactly.
Yeah.
So and he has a soft spot in my heart right now because he's the offensive coordinator at Northwest.
Yep.
And he's killing it up there. Got him to the state this year. But I'm just hoping he keeps on rising in the coaching stepping tree, and eventually makes his way back to the Redskins because that would be a huge benefit for them.
Right. And just real quick, just think about that offensive line back then. You had 2 bookend tackles with Chris Samuel and John Jansen for a little bit. You had Randy Thomas inside, who was one of the best guards in the NFL. You had Casey Robach. Derek Dockery was in and out, but when he came back,
Will Montgomery was the center, wasn't he?
Will Montgomery too. Yeah, Casey Robach, then Will
Virginia
Montgomery.
Tech boy,
Yeah.
Jeez, man, it's how times have changed.
Times have changed. So, Reed, speaking of, who is your number 3?
My number 3 is one of another person who I think is just severely underrated, one of the most underrated wide receivers of all time. Took him forever to get into the Hall of Fame. I'm going to go with Art Monk. Art Monk, when he retired from football, of course, was the leader in receptions. You know, he was the all-time receiving leader. And then, of course, he got passed by some guy. I think his name is Jerry Rice. I don't remember. But no, Art Monk was always quiet. He was always he went out there. He was the guy. I know we want to talk about these Redskins receiving corps, but he was the guy in that offense, and he was fantastic for a very long time and put up some insane numbers for the generation that he played.
Yeah, and look, that's a great one because he was the best of those wide receivers. I know that we had Maurice on Tuesday who talked about those 3 wide receivers have 1,000 receiving yards, being one of the only teams to be able to do it. Yeah, the fun bunches. So it just goes to show the kind of talent that the Redskins had there. Now, at number 3, I have is Sean Taylor. Everyone knows that dude. I don't care who you are. There's only a handful of people that impacted games on a weekly basis, the way that Sean Taylor did, the way that, look, usually it's a quarterback that captivates a fan base. Rarely it's a running back or a wide receiver. Usually it's a quarterback. Never is it a safety. And that's what Sean Taylor did, is he brought an identity to this Redskins organization. Look, I don't care what you think about him on a social scale or personally. I don't give a shit. The fact is, I had a blast watching him in the burgundy and gold, and he's one of the best to give what he gave and produced for the Redskins is one of the best of all time, in my opinion.
And for the short time that he was here, you could honest to God make the argument that he was the best defender to step on the field in just about every game that he made.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, look at the impact that he has on just like the younger players coming up, like Landon Collins and
everybody loves him.
Like literally even players coming into the draft now, just like I study Sean Taylor, I watch his highlights, like
that was such a complete safety.
Just like literally like just like one of those like literally just like tone setters,
Right.
game changers, and just
And
just
and if you think about the safeties that were in that generation, Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, Brian Dawkins, Sean Taylor was honestly, arguably, I might be biased, but more talented than all of them. And if he could have played out his entire career, he would be right up there with those four or with those three guys in the best safeties of the generation.
I
Like, it's just so sad.
honestly believe just from a pure talent, just athletic standpoint, he was
Right.
all those guys like
Yeah.
Yeah,
not by
but
like
the
leaps and
difference is,
bounds, but like by like leaps.
but
Yeah.
we've talked about in this podcast for weeks now. The way that you progress in the NFL is through the mind, and that's where Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu and all those guys are all just one level above Sean, because
But that's
where
you started to see Sean his final season.
Yes.
That's why it's so sad.
I know.
That last year.
And all those guys
I
always
wish,
say
like,
that.
you know what I mean? Like, I wish we could continue that argument, you know?
I
And
know.
that's the shitty thing, is because you have to be factual about it, and that's the one area of Sean's game that he was just starting to get going, because everyone realized that the click had happened in his head, you know? As much as you want to talk about his personal, he did get better at the end of his career, and I don't care what you said, that dude was biking to work every day. You know, this isn't a dude that's sitting there complaining about the Ron Rivera not talking to him. This guy was biking to work every day. A lot of credit to him. Now, Hall, let's go to your number 2. Who is it? Oh, wait. Yeah, number 2.
Yeah, it's number 2. Yeah. Kind of going to take Reed's number 3. Art Monk, leader of the Fun Bunch.
You guys messed up.
Just one of those guys that like didn't do a lot of talking, didn't do a lot of flashiness, but just got on the field and let his play do the talking for him. Putting up crazy numbers in a time where it was mostly about the running game and about huge linebackers and a lot of like it was still about the trenches, but mostly about the trenches back then. But Art Monk, one of those guys that, like you said, should have been in the Hall of Fame a lot sooner than he got in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion. But a legendary Redskin that's always going to be loved, and a legend in just the NFL.
Yeah.
Still the fastest man to ever lace him up.
Yes, he is. Actually,
I'm sorry. I was thinking of my next guy.
Oh, no.
I'm pretty sure we all got number 1 is Darryl Green.
No. He's my number 2.
Yeah.
Darryl Green is my number 2.
Same with me. Darryl Green is my number 2.
Oh, good. Right. Darryl Green is, in my opinion, the fastest player to ever play in the NFL, as evidenced by so many plays. He was just his longevity and the fact that he played at such a high level. He was just so good, so consistent. And he was a part of one of the best draft classes of all time. Think about how many Hall of Famers came from that draft class. Not, of course, Redskins draft classes, but just that year with Dan Marino, John Elway, all these fantastic players got taken in that draft. And Darryl Green played forever, and he never changed teams. He's still involved with the Redskins, and I love Darryl Green.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. There's nobody else that you could ask to be the face of the Redskins organization than Darryl Green. He was one of the smaller guys at his position. He was one of the fastest guys at his position. And at that time, you have to imagine like the Oakland Raiders when they were doing the stickums on their hands and they were clubbing dudes in the head and they were just doing cheating any way that they could. Darryl Green played the game the right way. He played it fairly, and he still whooped ass doing it. You can go back and think about that one touchdown that he stopped.
Return.
Yep.
Okay.
The punt return that he stopped, that he hawked.
No, that was the kickoff return. I was thinking of the punt return where he broke his ribs and still returned it for a touchdown against the Bears.
Yep. And so Darryl Green, you have to talk about him when you talk about the Redskins greats. I know he deserves to be at number 1, but I have somebody else there. So Hall,
I.
So your number 1 is Darryl Green, Hall?
Yes, it is. I mean, like you pretty much both you guys just said. What else can I say more about Darryl Green? Just
right.
One of the nicest guys, like from anybody that's known him in the NFL. Everyone says he's one of the nicest guys. Just one of the greatest, if not, the greatest Redskin ambassador. Just like you just said, Kyle, like the premier and just what you would want in like the star franchise, just like what I would call a lifer, because he's been around the Redskins for his whole life. And yeah, he's my number 1. And he's a smaller guy, like you said, growing up. I was a smaller guy playing football, so it just made me be like, man, I'm gonna gravitate to him because he was such a great player, and I wanted to just mirror everything he did on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reed, who is your number 1?
Well, obviously we have the same person, I would imagine. The greatest practice player of all time, Taylor Jake. I'm just kidding, though. Arguably the greatest head coach, certainly one of the top 3 head coaches of all time, in my opinion, Joe Gibbs. No. I mean, if you just look at it, is that not who you have?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
I was going to go Gibbs, but I just thought you were talking about players.
Yeah. Well, it's okay, guys, because I'm right here.
It is true. He is right.
Joe Gibbs, man, of course, just the fact that you can look at all these other head coaches. Of course, Shula had the perfect season. So many coaches have won multiple Super Bowls. You look at what Bill Belichick's done, that it's crazy. But the fact that Joe Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different starting quarterbacks is just unreal.
The only head coach to ever do
it. Head coach to ever do that. I don't think that'll ever be seen again. It's just he winning those Super Bowls in that time frame when there was the Cowboys were starting to come along. Of course, you had the 49ers. You had all these good teams in the NFC, and Joe Gibbs could still win our 3 Lombardi trophies for us and have that. I'm sorry, I know you guys might have thought we were talking players, but in my opinion, the greatest Redskin of all time is Coach Gibbs. He's a Hall of Famer in 2 different sports. Just think about that. That dude is an incredible coach, one of the greatest, most well-respected people in the world, honestly, in the sporting world. And I'm going to go with Joe Gibbs as number 1.
Yeah, and look, and there's nothing wrong with that because anybody's going to sit here and tell you that Joe Gibbs is probably one of the best managers of people, just humans of all time. And look, you're 100% right. I'm not going to lie to you. That thought went through my head. It did, but I wanted to be, legit with this. I didn't. The easy one is Gibbs because I get in this argument with people all the time about the greatest of all time. Just hear me out. With Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Bill Belichick. And what I always say is it's the chicken or the egg argument with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. If you subtract one of them, they're going to deplete, and I don't think they have the same career without one another. So I can't have them being the best of all time at their respected positions. So the best coach of all time I have is Joe Gibbs, the only coach to ever win 3 Super Bowls with 3 separate quarterbacks and did it during a strike season. I mean, my goodness, it just shows the type of the guy that Joe Gibbs is, in my personal opinion. But my number 1, sir, I changed it up. My number 1 is going to be slinging Sammy Baugh, baby. He still, to this day, leads the Redskins in touchdown passes with 187. Given with all the new era, more games, easier to throw touchdown passes. Not only was he a quarterback, Sammy Baugh was also a defensive back and the kicker when he played for the Skins. So I think Sammy Baugh is the greatest Redskin of all time.
You get, of course, and that you can. Sammy Baugh is usually a consensus top 10 quarterback of all time in NFL history. Like the things that he was doing, the numbers that he was putting up back when the NFL didn't pass the ball, it's just insane. And the effect that he had on those games, Sammy Baugh is, and what he's meant to this franchise, still talking. He was doing commentating for a while. Slinging Sammy Baugh, man, he's the Redskins. I think you're right in terms of players. I think you can make a real argument he is number 1.
Yeah, and look, I wanted to stay true to that because, look, I always do think that Sammy Baugh is the greatest Redskin of all time. I know some people will say, why didn't you have Sonny Jurgensen in there? It's just he won 2 national championships.
Sammy Baugh is better.
Yeah. It's true. On all aspects, you're absolutely right. So now let's move on to what you wanted to talk about. So I'll let you bring up the conversation.
Okay, so if you'll notice over the last 2 years, we've kind of had 2 kind of dark horses come out of nowhere and win the MVP. Last year you had Lamar Jackson. The year before that you had Patrick Mahomes. Both of them were second-year players. This doesn't necessarily have to be a second-year player. I'm just letting you guys know that you guys can pick anybody, somebody who hasn't won the award. I know that there was one that I was going to go with, but I think it's a little bit too easy with the acquisitions that they made. I was going to say Kyler, but I'm going to go with a dark horse that I think could win the MVP this year, based off of what he did at the end of last year and with the weapons he is surrounded by right now in that division. They're going to have to score a lot of points. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I'm going to say look out for Drew Lock taking a huge step this year. Is he going to win the MVP? No, more than likely not. But I think that is a true dark horse that can't be overlooked. You look at what they have on offense right now. Not only did Cortland Sutton have a Pro Bowl year last year where he just exploded, you add Jerry Jeudy to the outside end. Then all of a sudden you're going to add KJ Hamler, who could have been one of the fastest players in this draft had he ran the 40. He is one of the fastest players in this draft, not named Henry Ruggs. And then you have Noah Fant as your number 1 tight end, who's a former first-round pick. And then you go out, you also draft Albert Okwuegbunam, who was one of the most athletic tight ends in this draft in the middle round. I think that he's going to have so many weapons in that offensive line. If they can get it together, he can have a pretty big season. He balled out towards the end of last year, and I think that he's in the perfect division where they're going to have to score a lot of points against the Chiefs and against the Raiders. And I could definitely see him being a dark horse candidate to come out there and blow it up. Originally, like I said, I wanted to go Kyler. I thought that was a little too easy for me, so I changed it up. I went Drew Lock, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're right. Their wide receiving core definitely did get shot up with a lot of talent there with Jerry Jeudy and with Cortland Sutton already being there. So you know that they're loaded, and so they're going to have the ability to score a lot of points downfield. So now that Reed has taken your dark horse pick, Hall, do you have another one ready?
Did I take your dark horse pick?
No, that wasn't my dark horse pick. I was just saying that's my guy because like I've been saying
okay.
this is going to be Drew Lock's year ever since the end of last year. I was going to like because I knew they were going to take the top receiver in the draft. So like I pretty much knew.
And they took two of them.
They're going to have two like deep threats. Then they get hammered, like you said. I mean, I'm just going to let you know a little secret now. That's going to be my fantasy football quarterback this season. So, yeah, I think he's going to put up huge numbers. So that's a great pick, even though there's like a 0.1% chance he's going to get anywhere.
Right.
Good odds if you want to place a bet on it, though. But my dark horse is a lot of people's last year's dark horse, but he fell on his face because he was out there doing 10 commercials being all over TV. And I'm going to go with good old Baker boy. Baker Mayfield. Obviously, he has the weapons around him.
Improved the O-line.
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens was just a complete idiot, and I think just totally screwed that team up last year. I think with Stefanski coming in, he's used to a two wide receiver sets with like Diggs and Thielen led the Vikings last year, and I think that he's going to be able to manage that offense, get everyone the ball, spread it out a lot. Solid run game with Nick Chubb, which is going to set up the play action for Odell to get down the field, which is going to lead to touchdowns for Baker. And I just think he's going to have huge numbers, and I think the Browns are going to have a huge year to go along with the huge numbers.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry, just all around, man. They improved their offensive line. They signed Jack Conklin, drafted Jedrick Wills. They already have two phenomenal receivers. They already had David Njoku, who was a former high draft pick. And then you also go out and sign Austin Hooper on top of having Nick Chubb in the backfield, which should be an improved defense. Adding Grant Delpit to that secondary. And then I think that team, they could surprise. Nobody's talking about them after they disappointed last year, but I think Baker could definitely have a bounce back year.
Yeah, and that's a good pick. And look, Cleveland is hoping that he does because they have been striving and starving for something, very dehydrated from success there in Cleveland. They need a resurgence there, and Baker Mayfield being league MVP would revitalize that city, and they would definitely need it.
Russell Wilson would actually got traded there. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
I know. Oh my God.
Now, my dark horse, I'm not really sure if this would be considered a dark horse, but I'm going to go with Phillip Rivers. Going to the Indianapolis Colts, I think he is in the best position for success. You think about his time in San Diego and in LA, they never really gave him an offensive line that was sustainable for him to be a league MVP type quarterback. Now, that being said, people are going to say, well, he's going to a new system, going to new players. How is he going to be successful? I think that he's used to that. Every single year, Phillip Rivers' wide receivers get hurt. They have to go through the garbage bin to go find him some wide receivers, and he continues to produce year after year. I think you add that on top of an offensive line led by Ryan Kelly and what's his face? I forget his name.
Quentin Nelson.
Quentin Nelson. They're going to run the ball down people's throats. Phillip Rivers is going to be able to sit in the pocket, in a protected pocket, use play action, get the ball downfield to T.Y. Hilton, and he's going to hit his guys. You know he's going to get his yards, and plus, with Darius Leonard leading that defense, I think that could be a legitimate contender. And with Houston falling back a little bit, with Jacksonville falling down 3 pegs, I think Phillip Rivers is poised to have a great year, but I would not count out Deshaun Watson.
Right. And just the fact that if you look at the history of Phillip Rivers, he loves these big, tall receivers. So the Colts going out there and drafting Michael Pittman early in the second round with our pick was just a fantastic call. And you're right, that offensive line and adding Jonathan Taylor in there, if he can hold on to the ball, that defense should be much improved. Like I already mentioned Kyler Murray, but another interesting tidbit, somebody who's never even received an MVP vote, as crazy as it is, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is balled out, and he can't be considered a dark horse because he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. But just the fact that he's never gotten an MVP vote is crazy.
That is insane, because I was gonna pick Russell, but I was like, that's a low bearing fruit. Everyone's gonna pick Russell because with DK Metcalf exploding last year, and then Tyler Lockett exploding last year. I told everyone on this on the podcast last year, draft Tyler Lockett in the 2nd round. He's going to produce for you this year without Doug Baldwin being there, and he answered the call, and DK Metcalf even answered that call even better. So that's a very good one indeed. There, I like that pick there, Reed.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, that's going to wrap us up for today. I'm sorry that we got to cut this one a little bit short, but Catherine's in the hospital right now. I got to go pick up her.
Oh no,
her
is she
car
okay?
Yeah, so I'll tell you guys later, but she we're going through something right now. So she had a reaction to not the antibiotics, but whatever the shots are, and so she was throwing up for 36 hours, and so she had to go in and get IVs, and they won't let me be there with her. So they're keeping her overnight. I'm going to pick her up in the morning, but her car right now is there, and so I want to leave my truck here. So Butler's coming to pick me up, and we're going to go get the car.
Well, good. Best wishes, Katie. I hope you're all right.
I said, get better, feel better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, guys. Appreciate that a lot. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and share our page on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can find us on iTunes Podcasts. Please subscribe and rate us. Give us a review. If you give us good reviews, we'll shoot up the chart every time people search for our Redskins podcast. So we really appreciate if you guys were able to do that for us. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find us at Chronic Sports on Twitter and hashtag Redskins Tweet Team, baby. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week. Redskins football.
Are we going to sign off? Are we going to sign off?
Yeah, this is Kyle.
I'm a disappointment to my father.
And I'm Hall. Yeah.
All right, everyone.
I went through 8 different things that I could say for the next 8 weeks, so we're good.
I'm glad you wrote that down. Priorities.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Redskins football. Woo!
Yeah.